Films about disability require a certain level of care, attention and research put into them that many other films do not require. My Left Foot, The Theory of Everything, Rain Man and countless others all produce their cinematic experience with the added emotion and education required for audiences to not only enjoy the film as a piece of cinema, but also learn about an individual or group of people who they, beforehand, may not have known much about. This is why films about disabilities, whether that be mental or physical, are held to such a high critical bar as, if executed poorly, it could misinform the audience about a very sensitive subject. But, when a movie that covers this subject matter gets it right, it gets it spot on. This brings me to, in my opinion, not only the best movie ever made that tackles this topic, but one of the best films ever. Adam Elliot's Mary and Max. The plot. Mary and Max is a claymation stop-motion animated Australian film which is written, produced and directed by Adam Elliot. To put the plot simply, the film follows two people who are pen pals over 2 decades from different continents, which, on its own, sounds nothing special and could be quite boring. However, in reality, the plot actually covers topics such as friendship, psychiatry, alcoholism, obesity, kleptomania, sexual differences, trust, religious differences, agoraphobia and most importantly, Asperger's. The film begins in 1979 with Mary Daisy Dinkle, an 8-year-old Australian girl with no friends. Her mother is an alcoholic thief and her father is a depressed factory worker who would rather taxidermy dead birds than spend time with her. The family is very poor, so Mary is forced to make her own toys and has a pet rooster named Ethel who is found on the side of the road. At the local post office, Mary finds a phone book from New York and is curious to find out where babies come from in America. She chooses to write to someone and ask. The person she ends up writing to happens to be Max Jerry Horowitz, a 44-year-old morbidly obese man who we, in the third act of the film, find out has Asperger's syndrome. Like Mary, Max has no friends apart from his cat, fishes, snails, birds and imaginary friend Mr. Ravioli. Max details his life to Mary in his letter back to her, describing many of his jobs he has had previously throughout his life, splashed with subtly heartbreaking moments relating to his mental health. Mary's mother is not impressed with her daughter talking to a mid-40s American man. However, Mary informs Max to send his letters to her neighbour as she collects his mail for him after PTSD caused by World War II has left him with agoraphobia, the fear of going outside. Whenever Max receives a letter from Mary, he has a severe panic attack due to the confusing questions she asks of him. This then causes him to sadly attempt suicide before being institutionalised for 8 months. When he is allowed home, he adapts his life, and whenever Mary sends him a letter and he starts to feel stressed, he takes his medication and calms himself down. Mary then grows up, but remains in contact with Max and they remain each other's only true friend. Mary goes on to university to study mental disabilities in order to fully understand her pen pal. Her parents die a year apart from each other, which makes Mary not care about others' opinions and go for what makes her happy. She then gets married to her childhood sweetheart, Damien, a Greek immigrant with a stutter. Whilst Mary grows up, Max wins the lottery and buys a lifetime supply of chocolate and all his favourite toy figures. He then donates the rest of his money to his blind, elderly neighbour Ivy, who goes on to die in a jetpack related incident. Max is then, in the early 1980s, diagnosed with Asperger's, which has just been discovered and identified by scientists and other doctors. This causes Mary to progress further with her studies and create her final dissertation on Max and use his letters as her case study. This causes her to become a widely successful author on the brink of releasing her thesis as a book to the general public at age 25. However, when she writes to Max letting him know the good news, Max reacts incredibly negatively and feels betrayed. Upon finding this out, Daisy begins a downward spiral into depression and alcohol, emulating her mother. She destroys all copies of her books and awaits Max responding to her apology, but it never comes. Her husband is then revealed to be gay, and leaves her for his own pen pal in New Zealand, and explains that he can't stand to watch her be like this. After all of this, she finds a bottle of Valium and attempts to kill herself by hanging and overdosing, unbeknownst to her as she is a few months pregnant. She is, however, eventually saved by her neighbour, who has cured his agoraphobia, to hand her the package Max had sent saying he accepts her apology. The film then cuts to a year later when Mary arrives, finally in New York, with her baby and enters Max's building to meet her friend of 22 years. However, when she enters his apartment, it is revealed Max died that morning, staring up at all of the letters Mary sent over the 2 decades. The film ends with Mary holding Max's hand on the sofa as she cries. I know I was quite detailed with the plot, however I feel it is incredibly important to fully understand the characters in this film and the trials they go through over the runtime. Max and Mary feel real. They don't feel like figments of Elliot's imagination or 2 characters that would never exist in reality. They feel authentic and true to life. And I can't explain how important that is in a film that discusses topics that are as incredibly sensitive as some of those are in this piece of cinema. Without characters that feel real, you can never draw the audience in. And in a medium such as claymation, character development is the most important aspect of the experience, as it is unlike anything else. With real actors, you can direct them to act, stand, look, speak, or articulate in a specific way. With claymation and stop motion in general, you have to make this yourself and ensure the ideas in your brain fully come out in your meticulous, time-consuming, excellent work. Art style and soundtrack. Claymation, animated stop motion, choreographies, whatever you want to call it, this is my favourite form of animation in the world. Aardman animations made up so much of my childhood, and one of my favourite films ever is A Nightmare Before Christmas. The amount of time it takes to create stop motion art means that, almost, every project created with this style in mind is a labour of love and commitment, and I always feel that this comes across in the work, whether that be in TV shorts, television programmes or feature-length films. Mary and Max uses claymation to the best of their abilities to convey the intricate, inner workings of autism and those on that spectrum. The panic attack scenes show us a window into Max's mind that accurately portrays those on the autistic spectrum's reaction to new and confusing things. The over-exaggerated sweat pouring from his brow, to the almost melting-like quality of his skin, to finally his eyes bulging out of his head. This is achieved to such a level that it couldn't portray this level of realism without the clay medium they have at hand. New York is gorgeous and depressing. Australia is bright and dull at the same time, and the world as a whole is just beautiful. With every moment being practical effects, it shows the amount of care and attention Elliot and his team have put into this piece of cinema. The soundtrack is absolutely mesmerising. From strings to brass to intense rock to smooth jazz, Dale Cornelius adds so much to every single scene his music accompanies. When Mary writes her second letter to Max detailing how her mother calls her an accident and she's bullied, the music is heartbreaking.
My tea is smudging my words. Your friend in Australia, Mary Daisy Dinkle.
When Max wins the lottery, the music is frantic and promotes anarchy. And when Mary holds Max's hand on the sofa at the end, it is beautiful. I would however argue the best use of music is in the Mary attempted suicide scene. Out of nowhere, Que Sera Sera starts to play, and it is absolutely gut-wrenching. The choice of using an established, emotional song was the absolute right one and caused me, and many others watching, to break down. Inch of production in this film is incredible and to be marvelled at. The cast. The late Philip Seymour Hoffman plays Max Horowitz, and I honestly don't think anyone could have played the character better. At its heart, the film is an emotional comedy, and Hoffman is perfect for this role, evoking such levels of laughter from the audience before instantly turning into gut-wrenching emotion about a man unsure of his surroundings is special in and of itself, but the way Hoffman manages to seamlessly merge these two together is masterful to watch. When asked about what drew him to the role, Hoffman stated,
"Somebody in need of connection, that grave need of connection, and finding it and taking advantage and wanting to be a better person because of it, for that person. That the connection that he makes with a person makes him want to be a better person. And that's a beautiful thing. That's kind of what makes the world go round.
His answer to the question opens up an entirely different dimension to Max's character. Whilst the film, on the surface, portrays him as an outcast of society, by listening to Hoffman's view of his character, we see that he actually resembles a part of every person alive today. It's an absolutely fascinating take and one I wholeheartedly support. Toni Collette as Mary Dinkle also plays her role exactly as it should be, and whilst not shining quite as brightly as Hoffman, she steals the show in her own way. The fact that Mary doesn't talk quite as much as Max means that when she does, her words add further gravitas to the story and arc of the film. The optimism in her voice when opening the door to Max's apartment that, in the space of 10 seconds and saying the exact same word, completely drops away to heartbreak is absolutely perfect.
It's us. We're here. Max?
And then we move on to the narrator. What I've neglected to mention thus far is that the entirety of this film is accompanied by a narrator explaining everything that is happening, as most of the film is told through letters. Barry Humphries was chosen to play the part, and his voice fits the project perfectly. A softly spoken, educated voice, I feel, is required for a role like this, and Humphries delivers and then some.
Max had died peacefully that morning, after finishing his final can of condensed milk.
Eric Bana plays the love interest Damien and, whilst not a huge part, is great as his role. Overall, the cast adds and creates the perfect blend of comedy, information and emotion to this film. Overall messages and conclusion. The messages in this film are the most important aspect. Mary and Max portrays things like mental illness, disability, physical appearance and many more with such ease, whilst at the same time maintaining the gravitas required for children or adults with no prior experience of the subject, that I don't understand why other animation studios haven't picked up Adam Elliot. This film hit home for me as I have personal experience with Asperger's. I myself do not have it, however, the uncle I am incredibly close to in my family does. Oftentimes, people with Asperger's don't feel part of society. They don't feel like they're part of the world they inhabit. However, films like this go a long, long way in proving that they do. They are a part of our lives, they are a part of our society, they are a part of our friend groups, they are a part of our family, and the handling that Adam Elliot and his team have given to this makes sure that when they are watching it themselves, they are made aware of this. This film actually feels like they asked someone with Asperger's to describe what they feel on a day-to-day basis. It never comes across as if Adam Elliot just decided to write about the autistic spectrum with no prior research. There are two lines in this film that I feel are the most important. The first being,
"One time, the police took me in for questioning, but let me go when they decided I wasn't a threat to anybody, except myself."
This casual, nonchalant comment from Max has huge cultural and social significance. Even now, in 2019, when those with mental disabilities are spoken about, there is often still a bias. There are often still attacks on them. There is still this idea of, well, as long as they don't hurt anyone else, who cares? Mary and Max looks those people in the eye and say, this is why you should care. The second most important line, and personally the most important line, is,
"I do not feel disabled, defective, or a need to be cured. I like being an Aspie. It would be like trying to change the color of my eyes."
This is beautiful. This is the reality of the autistic spectrum alongside any other form of disability or mental health. It is a part of who that individual is, and removing that part of them would make them incomplete. It adds to their brilliance, and that's why this film is so important. I genuinely feel this is one of those films that should be shown in school. It is crucial for kids or young adults to fully understand the differences that make up the society they are soon to be moving into. Individuals with disabilities are not broken. They aren't hindrances. They're valuable members of our world and should be further integrated into our lives and made to feel welcome. Mary and Max showcases how those relationships can work through good and bad. I absolutely adore Mary and Max. It is easily in my top 3 films of all time, and I hope that this passion and love comes across in this review. I honestly hope you go and watch it, even though I've told you basically everything that happens, as I feel it is a film and experience you need to witness at least once. If Adam Elliot ever sees this, however unlikely, thank you for creating this cinematic triumph. You and your team are incredible. Thank you for shining a light on Asperger's in such a calm, reflective and nuanced way. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe to see more content from this channel. In the description, please go and check out Phantom Strider. He massively inspired me to make this video, as he himself is an Asperger's YouTuber who covers films and media and stuff like that, and I actually found Mary Max through his videos. So please go and check him out. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I am at McIverTheMark. It is in the description and on screen. I also have a Patreon if you're at all interested in donating to that. That would be hugely helpful to me. Let me know what you thought of this review and the topics I've discussed in the comments below, and I'll see you next time, guys. Goodbye.